Welcome to Weekly Open. My name is Brian, here with everybody today, maybe for the first time or for the last time for a while, due to personal events on the horizon. Don and Cred. Don, you're on the left. How you doing?
Good. Just sitting here with the door open, so if my fiance starts screaming, I'm gonna run. But good. Cannot complain.
Is she having contractions or something? Like, are you just, or is it just
Oh,
it's close?
it's close. Like she's
Okay.
had contractions yesterday.
Gotcha.
So.
That's a very personal question. I apologize.
Oh, good.
Cred, is your portfolio having contractions?
Well, I'm in Don's closet waiting for someone to start screaming, and then we'll go together. So yeah, that's the plan for today.
Good. Well, I don't think we talked last week, and the number of Bitcoin went up. We had a 15% move so far off the bottom, roughly. Nice move. Bitcoin dominance also doing fairly well. I can't remember where we stood on this, but markets are looking significantly better. Are you guys enthused? Don, you want to give us a little market rundown?
I can, yeah. I mean, in general, I think, and a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but like when you get news like this, like the ETF headlines, I think support, resistances, whatever, all go out the window. Like when they're significantly big, you just have to kind of trade the news rather than support resistance lines. And I see a lot of people saying like, yeah, no, everything's in the price. I very much disagree with that. But yeah, everyone for themselves. So like whatever we said before the news comes out or came out, and this might just be me coping because I was actually bearish before we went up. But I think it doesn't really have any significance when you have big news like this come out. Like if you don't change your stance when you get these kind of news, I don't know, just seems a little bit odd to me. But yeah, high time frame wise, the monthly kind of looks right now anyway, like the last month, that horrendous price action that we had. Realistically, even like this month and last month, because I mean this month is almost over, and the only good price action we've had is like in the last week or so. Like that was just a pullback, right? Like a tiny pullback in the grand scheme of things. Like this looks much better now than it did before, just by basically engulfing all that shitty price action. Front ran the support by a little bit, like 23k was monthly support. We went all the way to 24, but didn't quite make it to monthly support. Turned around, in my opinion, because the fundamentals kind of changed. As dumb as that sounds, like the ETF thing, changing the fundamentals, but I think it's like very true, because we like this market was untouchable for a while, right? Like with the Binance news, with FTX, like it's really tough to be in a market like that for just bigger players, right? Like if you run a fund and you have to justify being in crypto while the SEC just tries to nuke everything, I think that's pretty hard to do. And I've talked with a few, and they've had to justify themselves quite a bit for positions, or just kind of pivoted afterwards. So yeah. And now after the news, I think it's changed. I think it's touchable again.
Do you guys think that the amount that Bitcoin in particular went down as Binance and Coinbase got dually sued in the same week, not really having a massive impact on price, was a lead in to the fact that when you get good news that it could be overly responsive?
Yeah, I think so. But then again, like it's also the fact that the SEC's just been doing this over and over again. So at some point, people are just going to be like, okay, this is just kind of bullshit. Like the more often you do something, like the same with China bans, right? We've had China bans in the entire history of Bitcoin, and the first times around it completely nuked, and then with every single time it just got less and less severe. And I think it's the same with these kind of SEC news, especially given people kind of realize that they're leading, like they're going way above and beyond what they should be, and that there's actual opposition in the US, in the in Congress and everywhere else, really. So
Mhm.
I think that's like a part of it, but also, yeah, it could be just insiders buying stuff up, right? I wouldn't be shocked if there was some of that, like people that knew, that just kind of bought the dump, made it less severe. But yeah, I don't know.
Cred, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I think the news argument is a tricky one, especially at the lows, because I was also tempted to make a sort of diminishing impact bullish argument. The
Mhm.
issue is the larger structure just kept drifting lower, and that wasn't changing at all. And we had the SEC retrace big green daily, and then that just bled out. And so it's really hard to make that argument for, oh, look, bad news is being absorbed when you have one update from just late sellers, and then it just kept drifting lower. And I also don't think it's a complete coincidence, at least in terms of the impact of news flows, that it bottomed like literally the second or the minute or the day at the very least that the ETF filing was announced. So whether you're looking at charts or fundamentals, it ended up being pivotal one way or another.
Yeah,
So
I think
that seems to be the
my
news
point
wave.
is just it was this type of candle, not this type of candle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not, and I completely agree with you. I think you made that case well over the previous how 3 months now of it's not chop when it's going down the whole time.
Right.
It's just a downtrend. I think that was well stated. But like I don't know, Binance and Coinbase both getting the gavel smacked down on them, and that being the response. I was encouraged by it, I guess. But yeah, nevertheless, BlackRock. Are you guys conspiracy theorists on this thing, or do you think it's just kind of a coincidence of timing?
I'm actually in the conspiracy camp on this one.
I'm rarely a conspiracy theorist, but I feel like it's ridiculous timing.
Yes, it just seems odd. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be like, okay, you guys just kind of nuke the market and we're gonna like get in. But I think it was basically like, let's get rid of people, so we can move in. As in, like, not okay, we need price to be low, but just in general, let's kind of eliminate the rest of the competition, or like at least make them weaker before. I wouldn't be shocked by that, honestly. And I hate being on the conspiracy side of things because most of them just don't make sense. Like I actually like conspiracies as a whole, as long as they make sense. Like it's so much fun to think about like a lot of this stuff, and then you like for example, like the COVID leak theory, right? Like the lab thing. I was like, this actually makes sense to me. Like I'm very happy to be on the conspiracy side of things on this one, just because it makes sense. And then there's other shit where people are like, yeah, the airplanes in the sky spray chemicals. I'm like, are you guys fucking on crack? Like everyone's living on the same planet. Like why the fuck would you? Like makes no sense.
Well, the other thing that I think makes a conspiracy more likely to be true is when the fewer conspirators required
Yes.
in order for it to be able to occur. And in this type of circumstance could literally be like one executive, one source inside of an agency and over a cocktail or coffee or just because they're buddies or whatever. And it could be even happenstance, not like this, like, oh, I'm calling you to let you know we're bringing down the hammer. Like, it could just, it could be something much more, much simpler, almost like a leak type of thing. And therefore BlackRock's prepared to swoop in at the right time. And anyway, I tend to be a conspiracy theorist.
Well, the thing is, these things take a while to pass, right? Even internally to apply for this type of thing. I'm sure there are a ton of legal consultations and, going through the hierarchy, if you will. The timing is still quite suspect, I think, generally speaking. But this isn't like an instant thing you can do that, okay, we're going to apply for an ETF, right?
Yeah,
this
of course.
Stuff
well, they probably had it on a
days and
shelf
weeks
for
and
months or something.
Yeah, months, I reckon. So, it could have been on the shelf, and then, one of his mates is like, oh, SEC Gary really doesn't like these incumbents, and, that could have been it. But yeah, I think the timing is a bit too tight to not be at least marginally conspiratorial about it.
Richard in chat says the causality is meaningless. Who cares? We are here now. My only thing on that is it makes me sad when you have like the people that have been trying within the space for a long time being pushed aside for the ones who you know, the legacy big kids, right? So like people have critiqued American exchanges for a long time, Coinbase, Gemini, and others, Kraken. But they've been trying and been getting the smackdown on them. And I think it's crap, honestly, that they don't get the fruits of their labors now. Because did y'all see BlackRock's success record is something crazy, like 500 to 1. They've lost like one ever ETF application. So like I finally believe we're gonna have a spot ETF because I'm not betting against those odds.
No, I've seen a lot of people be like, they just like randomly applied, and I think it's just so stupid. Like I think they would only apply if they have a very, very strong case for actually getting it approved, or if they actually know that they're just going to get it approved. With that kind of track record, it's not just happenstance that like that happens, you know? Like it's not like they're like, oh, they're just so much better than everyone else. It's just they kind of talk with the SEC, I'm guessing. Otherwise, you wouldn't have this track record in comparison to everyone else. So I agree with you. I think it's very, very likely that we're going to get an ETF, and it's going to be a BlackRock ETF.
I also think that aside from maybe short-term selling the news, that it has an opportunity to be an extreme long-term bullish impulse, because it's just going to establish passive flows for a long time. Especially the way American retirement systems work, like being able to shove your 401k into crypto. I think a decent number of people will opt into that. And that'll have a nice impact for crypto. Most people like our age and younger, or I say that like my age and your age and younger, like a significant percentage of their investable net worth is actually in those retirement type accounts, especially in the US, because that's really the only way people save. So I personally believe it'll have a significant impact.
Over the long term, I'm pretty sure it will.
Yeah.
I do agree. I mean, short term, we got a massive pump out of it in a pretty bearish market, right? I mean, just if you just look at the weekly, like we went up quite a bit, rally right back into resistance, but it is kind of the second test of that resistance that we have. And the more often we hit that, the weaker it gets. I'm not sure if we're going to break through this time. But I think like just looking at this thing just makes sense to be on the lookout for buys. Like I don't really see.
Are you moving your supports to 28K or so? Like this kind of midpoint?
Yeah. We have like support at 29K, and then technically 28K. Yes, that'd be a little bit deep, I think, but could happen. It's just I don't like if we move like if we lose this momentum, because then it's just basically fading good news, and that's the sign of a weak market. But in general, with this, even if it goes down, I think you want to be looking for buys. Like even if this invalidates the bullish case by going below 28K or whatever, I think you still like it just makes sense, right? Because I think the ETF is going to get approved. If you don't think so, obviously the exact opposite is the case, because if this ETF gets denied, I think we giga nuke. And I think that could be actually one catalyst to get like a bigger pullback, is if this ETF gets like delayed, and that should come out pretty soonish, right? Like in a month's time or something.
Well, you can't expect me to be prepared with that type of answer.
Yeah, I think they have like 45 days until they have to delay it, and they applied like last week or something. But I don't trust me on this. My head's somewhere else. But
nobody else is sharing their charts, so I've resulted to put diagonals on the chart here. So just trying to trigger cred at this point.
I love a good diagonal, just not that one.
Oof. I haven't put a diagonal on a chart in a long time. I'm just saying.
But yeah, we are at resistance. So this is what I was talking about. I kind of thought I was sharing the screen.
Bobby in the chat says August 12th, by the way. Thank you for doing our research for us.
Oh yeah. So perfect. I mean, August 12th is, I mean,
it's
a little bit.
I might be back from my paternity leave.
I mean, I might be trading at that point again. But yeah, if it gets delayed, I think people are going to nuke it because historically, like the more it gets delayed, the more likely it is to fail. I think that'd be a good dip buying opportunity because I think it would turn around if it does get delayed. But other than that, like we're at resistance. I don't trust the resistance. Like I would never short this. Don't really see a point. And low time frame, there's really nothing up here, right? Like we got rejected here before, but I don't really think there's like good support or resistances. It's all about the momentum now. Like if we can hold here, consolidate above 30k, it's good look. If we start like bleeding back down, it's a very bad look because then it would remind me of the China pump candle back in it's a long time ago now that we had here in, when was that, 2019, where we had a massive pump based on a narrative, and then the narrative fell apart, and then it went up. That'd be an interesting way to trade this thing. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. But in general, like if we lose the momentum, I think that could be a massive bloodbath that you would want to buy. Just not too early, I think. If it does lose the momentum, if it doesn't lose the momentum, Gigamoon it up. For me, like I'm not having any positions because I want to focus on other things. But still cheering you guys on.
Well, Cred and I won't be making any money during it.
Correct. Thank you.
Cred, what do you have to add to all this?
Gosh. Yeah, I think as far as the weekly time frame goes, I can screen share this really quickly to save you, Ledger. 1 sec. Okay. Hopefully you can see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yeah, so we essentially had like a long drift, and I was bearish during this drift. But then the argument was you don't want to trade the drift itself. It's the break of the drift that tends to be a lot more consequential, be it acceleration to the downside, which seemed likely to me at the time pre-ETF news. But since then, we did like an XRP 2018, 2019-esque move where you like wipe out months of downtrend in one candle. And that's why I'm similarly skeptical of arguments that if it's bullish, it's just going to pull back to like deep support and go from there. Because even at that point, it gives back essentially half of the momentum, and half the move gets retraced immediately afterwards, right, in the week following. So I think that's I mean, I would probably trade this level just as a sort of short-term punt because it's a nice level. But in terms of just like keeping this pump going, I don't think you want to see a shallow pullback. A larger pullback, because it's one of those pullbacks support that would be bearish given the context. So I think the maximum appropriate thing that I'd be willing to settle for pullback wise would be to the higher up weekly level, because you were sort of doodling this while Don was talking. You had this 28, you had a shallow one at 29, right? Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, when you have large, what should be kind of trend forming moves, or at least moves that you'd expect more candles that look like the breakout candle, it's, for me at least, normally acceptable if it wants to trade to the shallow pullback level, far less acceptable if it wants to trade to the deeper pullback level, especially if it's happening like very soon after. So in terms of short-term stuff, while I agree on a purely technical basis, 28 is still good support. It's one of those contextual ones where I don't want to give back this entire day, right? And I don't want to do it so soon either. It'd just be a bit weird and would look quite weak. So I think if you're looking at this, at least from the daily time frame, 29 is your sort of reasonable, somewhat visible pullback level. And even that seems somewhat, I mean, that's reasonable. Like I'm okay with that. I think that's the maximum acceptable pullback if you're going to be making a sort of momentum oriented argument. Anything below that starts to look dodgy, especially because we know how the TA crew operates. They'll have this swing high, call in SFP, and then the range low will come in like, I don't know, just make something up. It'll come in here, and then the argument will be, oh, look, we've sort of deviated the range high, right? Deviated here, midpoint, range low, and all the bearish arguments start coming out, valid or not, technical or not, if this pullback does unwind below, I think, again, 29-ish at most. So yeah, and also just like in terms of the weekly time frame, when you see a candle like this, like a 1 week that wipes out months of downtrend. If you're going to be bullish, does it make sense for it to just retrace half of it immediately? That's just very hard for me to reconcile. So it's one of those where the context almost matters a bit more than strict TA. That if this move is strong, it should offer either no or shallow pullbacks. And for me, the shallow pullback again is just anything below 29. It doesn't look very shallow and looks more shit than shallow. So that's kind of the focus for the time being, and it's nice that all this stuff kind of aligns with lower time frame structure as well. ETH is slightly trickier because it's still at this bloody 1930 whatever level. It's so annoying at this point. It's like we've sort of fixed Ethereum. We've discovered the fair value, and as long as it's below 1930. And I don't like catch up trades in general, especially with ETH BTC looking a bit like this. But in terms of higher time frame structure, we've already spent so much time here. It was the original resistance level, failed to break out. We've already retested it twice. I think if that breaks, if you look to the left, there's just a bunch of sort of emptiness there, and all this kind of 3AC gap selling up until 2,500. So that's a swing trade that's interesting if it materializes. And on the BTC front, I think shallow pullbacks are interesting. Deeper pullbacks aren't, at least for me.
I think what makes that ETH trade scary is not the if, but the when. I'm very confident actually that if we continue an up move in general, ETH does teleport at some point to that 2,500. But looking at this candle right here that you just showed with Bitcoin, if it breaches that previous high, like it also wants to teleport, and it might well do it just without ETH, So do you want to win once or do you want to win twice is kind of the question. And I do think that there's an opportunity for a 10-15% like daily move for Bitcoin that just leaves Ethereum and everything else in the dust. And then you get the ETH move, and you probably capitulate your ETH in the meantime at the wrong time. Like, I don't know. That ETH BTC chart has been cursed for a long time. And it's tricky. I feel like, I like ETH a lot, but I feel like if you're looking at all those.
No, it's chopping, Ledger. That's it. It's choppy, bro.
On the middle line that you crossed there was your breakdown with kind of double retests, and I think you can make an argument for this to go back to like 0.05, 0.055, pretty clean, pretty easily, and that would coincide with potentially a Bitcoin move up, ETH floating up a little bit in dollar value, and then ETH having the move to 2,500. And when you're tempted with this potential to win twice, it's always very, very exciting. So I kind of hope that they don't move in tandem. If they just move purely in tandem, it's not near as much fun. Because if you can get the double win out of it, or the triple win, because I think ETH would go ahead of the majority of other alts if they were to follow. So if you could get the classic, crypto rotation of Bitcoin, then ETH, then stuff, then that would be a lot of fun. What is this, Binance? BNB looks quite terrible. And we're seeing this across the board, like BNB and Doge is another one. Like a lot of the bag holdery coins are really not participating in this, and I think that's really good. I think the levitation of all coins was uniquely 2021, and it's been a long time since we've done the like really dedicated rotations, have to make good choices type of environment. And I think that would be really healthy for people who like to trade, and also markets as a whole, because when everything floats together, I think it just gets really, really nasty, because your global market caps go up a lot. Your liquidity is still kind of crap. Your hot ball of money is like in over its head, basically. But if you can get that condensed hot ball of money to rotate around, that could be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't have the tourists.
No, we don't. And right now we have Bitcoin sucking out liquidity out of everything, right? I mean, this is an absurd chart, considering that stable coins count as altcoins, right? So Bitcoin dominance being back at 50%, even though we have massive amounts of stablecoins now, just means the entire altcoin market basically went to near zero. And the last 3 weeks have just been kind of accelerating that. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think this is probably going to continue for a while, just because the narrative is entirely Bitcoin driven for now. And the only thing that's keeping the market up is basically that, in my opinion, that Bitcoin ETF. Given that everything else is getting sued or getting like, everything else is either security or in the process of getting one or becoming one. And so that's sucking out liquidity, I think. And that's a good thing, technically speaking. Because I think in general, like if you get Bitcoin strength and altcoins nuke, at some point the altcoins become attractive again. It's just a question of when. And I do agree with the take on ETH BTC. Like I was almost excited the last time we were trading at the highs on ETH BTC, right? But we never broke the high. So this kind of behavior is still going on. Lower highs, lower low. Yeah, the worst. Very, very choppy. No, this is like very bearish. And that's surprising given that ETH has a really good narrative too, right? The deflation meme is a pretty good meme, but right now it's not really showing. And you have almost all the other altcoins going down as well, with the exception of Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, I think that's going to continue, really.
We are getting asked about a couple of specific alts. One in particular is about Ape and Bored Ape Yacht Club and all that. So both ApeCoin and BAYC, the monkeys, are getting completely wrecked. I think this is pretty directly correlated to the farming stuff, where everybody was farming Blur and using Bored Apes and a couple other things as their currency to do so. And then people end up with apes that don't actually want apes. So as they start dumping into the other bids, then down you go. In addition to the narrative just not being very good for a lot of JPEGs at the moment. And in addition to that, coins that are behind JPEG communities that I can't describe what Ape actually does for people. So I think that creates problems. I did see recently Ape, this coin is, I think, trading publicly at their prior raise value, something like that. So anyway, it's interesting, but this isn't a bus I want to stand in front of.
No, I mean, I think in general, like the ape holders, as in like the actual NFT ape holders, just been embarrassing themselves so much in the last year or two that at some point it actually is embarrassing to rock one. And that's just bearish for NFTs, right? Like if the consensus is you're an idiot if you run one, and then you have to pay like, I mean, it's not 100,000 anymore. It's quite a bit less now. But you have to pay like what, like 60, 70,000 for an ape?
And 3080 floor right now.
Yeah, only for people to think that you're an idiot. I mean, you can do better than that, I think. I think in general, like it's probably going to pick up a bit eventually. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty tough with like, I mean, it's all about perception of like what people think of you. If you have like an NFT profile picture kind of project, and if people think you're an idiot for running it, it's not going to go up in value, I think.
I mean, I legit think like scammer, hacker, hacked account, all this type of stuff. Animated ape, stolen. Those are the things that come to mind when I see one of those profile pictures.
I mean, these were trading at 60 ETH just a couple months ago, so they're down pretty bad on an ETH relative basis, but yeah.
And then you have like, I think in general, like you just have good alternatives, right? Like if you're running a punk, people don't necessarily think you're an idiot. But yeah, the NFT space, I mean, I always lose money, so don't trust me on that. I just like looking at the ape coin, like that's not something I would want to be buying. I don't really see the point. Like that, like the ape thing literally just looks like a liquidity grab, like a money grab to me more than anything else. Like the NFT thing, I get. The coin, I have a little bit of trouble with, but maybe an ape holder can educate me on this.
No, I think
that'd be a first. Educating anyone on anything.
I think that's fair across the board. Personally, that the NFTs can make sense. The coins were a stretch, or are a stretch, continue to be a stretch. Yeah. Even punks are like 52 ETH or so, I think the floor is right now. So, yeah, I'll be curious, like which NFTs really achieve like a new cycle of Lindy effects and how impactful that is in a run up, a new run up for NFTs.
I could see myself buy punks, honestly. And this is something like I still remember when Bored Apes were trading at like 80 or something, and I was like, I want to buy NFTs, and I talked with Loom about it, and he always nails this shit. So I was like, I want to buy NFTs, and I want to either buy like Bored Apes or I want to buy punks, and I think the Bored Apes are stupid. But what do you think? He was like, oh no, you buy a Bored Ape, and I was like, are you sure? Because I actually want to buy punks, and then punks doubled and Bored Apes topped. But I could see myself this time not doing that same mistake. So if they dump some more, I might buy like some punks, just because I think they historically are interesting.
We did get asked if Pepe could replace Doge for the next cycle. I think no. I also think both of them suck. But I heard a pretty decent argument out of Jeebus on this, which was basically an ERC20 will never really be able to have the ceiling that a like solo chain coin could, which I've never really heard anybody try to make that argument before. But since Pepe's in ERC20, Doge is its own chain, like your most cultish Doge believers could be like, think like Doge is going to flip Bitcoin, was basically Jeebus's argument. And therefore they will be willing to hold to much higher levels than if it's a ERC20. I thought that was an interesting take, but I'm not sure that the meme coin season stuff is completely dead, considering how much this moved in 4 days. Like it was probably the best performing altcoin while Bitcoin was going up. But I would really like it to be over. I feel like this type of behavior has continued to be rewarded, and it takes a long time to punish these folks. Like if you look at Doge, thankfully it didn't really move at all on this upside, and still looks really bad on both the dollar and BTC relative perspective. But these types of mega moves should just really not happen very frequently. It's not very healthy for markets, but
okay, boomer.
Yeah. I know.
But I do agree. Bitcoin Cash actually outperformed Pepe on the way up.
Really?
Is quite funny. Yeah. I mean, Pepe is up. Like Pepe went up 95% ish, and Bitcoin Cash went up, even if you disregard the new candle, by quite a bit more. Like if you go from bottom to top, Bitcoin Cash is up a shitload.
Does it say something that like we're getting more active questions about meme coins than anything else? Like even and this is a chat. This stream is for like boring trader people, not normies.
Yes.
And it's like, will Sheeb flip Doge? Will Pepe do XY? Like it
is kind of bearish, no? Like
yeah.
It is kind of bearish. Like it means that we could just keep going sideways, I think, because like this is just stupid behavior. No, I don't want to flame anyone in the chat, because I mean, you go where money is being made, right? And Bitcoin Cash and Pepe and like this kind of shit, and Dogecoin and all these have been the places to make money. But I think in general, it's bearish for the market. Like if even this kind of bleed out didn't lead to this shit just disappearing, maybe we need more.
I don't know, but I get so torn on it. Like, you know, we just looked at Ape. You could look at like some of the pump and dump darlings of 2021. Like I'm thinking of Jewel. You there are a lot of things that disappear. It's just there's an endless stream of crap that follows. Like there's always something new. I mean, people were sharing some scam coin just yesterday, like trying to make it a thing, and it's just it drives me crazy.
It's so tiresome. Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I think at some point, like just being like, oh, like Pepe went up, I'm bearish. I think that's a stupid way to look at it. But I do feel more confident in the market when these kind of things are going down, at least in relative values.
Yeah, and largely, as you showed earlier, like Bitcoin dominance is going up, so that's probably overpowering these individual coins that people remain interested in. But
yeah, I think that's a very valid point. Like Bitcoin dominance is going up, like Pip is up 100x, and not 100x, 100%. Well, everything else is down like 10% against Bitcoin-ish, 5%, whatever. In general, didn't partake in the rally. So that's somewhat okay, because we do see like a little bit of a rotation from garbage into Bitcoin, and that's something that you want to be seeing. But obviously you want that to happen with Bitcoin strength. Like if Bitcoin starts bleeding out now and you still have like a Bitcoin dominance run, it just means people are leaving the sinking ship, right? That's not necessarily what you want. You want Bitcoin to go up and other stuff to go up, but less so in relative terms, because otherwise it's just bearish, I think.
We acted against a counter trend to legacy markets last week, mostly due to news. Do you guys think that we can continue to do that, or would we need more positive news to counteract a pullback in legacy markets? Because it does look a bit like the S&P and NASDAQ have at least some wiggle room to pull back or consolidate for several weeks, as you highlight there. Getting rejected from long term. What are you on, monthly chart resistance?
Yeah, I mean, this has me scared. Like, this is horrendous. I've been talking about like the 4.3K resistance for months and months. Now we hit it, and this kind of sucks, right? Because basically Bitcoin was not doing anything while the S&P was bullish. Then the S&P hit resistance, and Bitcoin got good news, and that's why it pumped. And now we're at S&P resistance, and I think if this drops significantly, I could see Bitcoin drop too. And then you have a bunch of people that position because of positive news. And I think that's how you can get a XE candle, like a China candle, if this drops significantly, because then you have a bunch of people that just kind of position because of news, more so than anything else. And I mean, that would be a good place to buy, but it would lead to quite a drop, I think. So this is a little bit scary, and this is something that I think people should keep an eye on, especially given how like the sentiment has shifted even in the traditional world, right? Like people were bearish at 4.1K, and I've seen a lot of people just be like, nah, now this is too high up. Now it's back to bull market again. And for me, we finally hit resistance, basically. So that has me a little bit scared. And I think if this drops properly, crypto isn't gonna be the one that's just staying upright and not moving or going up.
I continue to believe in my range bound squiggle from forever ago. I just think that's the most likely outcome. I could be completely wrong, but
no, I agree.
Actually, I think the bears are probably going to get slaughtered because it won't just nuke to their desires. And then I also think people screaming for all-time highs in price exploration are out of their minds. So it kind of only leaves the one outcome, which is make everybody sad and be range bound. And that's not to say, like, cred to your point earlier about, chop. It just, chop depends on your time frame. Like, this is quite big drawdown that we had. So being range bound can create a fascinating trade environment. But yeah. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I think that's right. We can ignore legacy up to a point, like we've seen in the past, like with the 24K breakout and stuff like that, that if there are sufficient crypto flows and the momentum is strong enough and tons of liquidations, all that type of, almost price insensitive buying can overlook in the short term any correlation weakness and stuff. But that needs to persist. And I think it also only applies up to a certain volatility threshold. So like if the S&P really starts to nuke, I expect that would affect us. And if crypto just kind of peters out and the S&P starts to be weak, I also think that would affect us. Because bigger picture, at least from the available evidence, all the sort of S&P correlation stuff hasn't been in our favor. We missed out on all the upside, and we got our own upside. Not as a thing as I've seen this called as a sort of catch up to the S&P. I disagree. I think it sort of ended up being a catch up in the sense that yes, price went up and the S&P went up first, but I don't think it's a catch up in terms of, you know, the correlation's been broken and now we're trading in lockstep, and the catch up is a function of getting back to 1-to-1 or something close. I think it's just, you know, the S&P at resistance and chilled, and then crypto had its own sort of flows to go up. But I don't think that means from now onwards that if the S&P goes up, we'll keep going up with it, for example. So yeah, that's all of that is, you know, a lot of word salad to basically say I think we can be okay as long as the S&P doesn't nuke too hard or crypto flows don't disappear completely. If either of those happen, I'm going to go back to the old correlation mode, which is basically we enjoy none of the S&P upside, of which there appears to be a limited amount anyway given monthly resistance, and then enjoy whatever, well, enjoy being a bit of an odd verb, but enjoy whatever downside is available. So yeah, but honestly, in windows like this, when you have like a really strong catalyst and really strong crypto flows, I'm more than comfortable, at least for the short term, ignoring the macro stuff unless it gets really wild out there. So
I don't disagree with that. Also, it would take quite a lot from a S&P perspective to look atrocious. You know, like you can go down a significant percentage and it just look like normal consolidation. You know, even retesting the full breakout that it had previously. Also, I think people continue to be underexposed to legacy markets, so that'll probably create some inherent absorption. And yeah, I think we can ignore those markets for a bit, unless it does go make new highs. Then it's like, oh crap, you know, risk risk on markets. Apparently, I just find that unlikely.
Yeah, I think like the thing is the S&P would look completely fine even at 3.7K to me. Like that's the range low, and as long as it's holding that, it's totally okay. It's just what would that do to our market is the question.
We'd get smoked.
Yeah, and I don't think like I think 3.7K is quite bearish, and as in like it's a low target. Like if you're bear hard, then you're like, I want to see this go to like 3K, whatever. I don't think you're gonna get that ever. I think like that's the bear hard kind of target. As in like if you're super bearish and you think this is it, I think lower than 3.7K, very, very unlikely. But if it does go there, I think we would get smoked, yeah. And that'd be again a dip to buy, but would be very bloody on the way. And I don't think like no matter what kind of news we get, if the S&P rug pulls, we're gonna rug pull too. So I think at this point, especially given how big crypto has gotten now, we just kind of have to concede that there's gonna be like some crypto specific flows. For example, the last week that we had. But all in all, like it's a little bit of a correlation thing, and I think it will probably be for most of the time. And then you're gonna get like 1 or 2 months of crypto specific either dump or pump, and they're gonna be quite significant. Those are gonna be the moves to catch. But for most of the time, I think we're gonna trade like a little bit correlated at least. So yeah.
We're also getting shilled Jewel in the chat. I don't know what to make of that.
Maybe because I mentioned it earlier as having gone to zero. So it sounds like somebody locked theirs.
You should know better, Ledger.
I don't have much else. I mean, if just looking around, I noticed that oil still looks weak. The Dixie still looks like it's just range bound.
I mean, DeFi 1.0 went up. You must
DeFi
have.
No,
it's the end of Degen Spartan's bear market, right?
It is. Honestly, I think there's a lot worse things to do than just trade buy DeFi because Degen Spartan's 36-month bear market is over, and just hope that catches on. I was actually looking at this. I don't know if y'all remember when we were squiggling Aave and DeFi stuff as like the breakdown and recover. And just the other day, I was talking about like it looks bottomy after that wick down there, and Aave goes up 30% the next day, and I got talked out of it. But to be fair, I really shouldn't have taken that trade based on where that chart was when it's down here at 0.0295. I'm not even sharing what I was looking at. But yeah, Aave 1.0 got a pump. Is that just a sign that we got over exuberant? Like by the time that's going, that means we're close to the end. I don't know what you would make of it, but
I think it's hard to trade those types of ideas, and it's a type of thinking that I see a lot, which is essentially what's the strong thing now, and then instead of buying the strong thing or whatever the present narrative or rotation is, you think 2 or 3 rotations ahead. Like, okay, we have a Bitcoin spot ETF. ETH BTC kind of has been strong in the past, so I'm going to buy ETH. But if ETH BTC is strong, that's risk on for alts, so I'm going to buy alts. But if alts are strong, meme coins outperform on the high beta effects, I'm going to buy meme coins. And then suddenly you've gone from BTC ETF good for BTC to buying meme coins by making 3 or 4 logical leaps. And that's like a really tricky way to trade. I'm not sure it always makes a ton of sense. At least I prefer trading what's in front of me, and I'd rather be slightly late to a rotation that's real than trade a rotation that is not real whatsoever. So yeah, I think with a lot of these things, it's a lot of the time you just take it at face value. What the market's telling you, the strong stuff is strong for a reason, weak stuff is weak for a reason, etc., etc. And then if you want to rotate, when you do it with foresight, it's great, but a lot of the time there is no foresight there, and you're just kind of jumping before you can walk, or whatever, running before you can walk. I don't speak English, so idioms are difficult, but I'm sure you get the point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I looked at candles like this that occurred in a few places, and historically, those can be opportunities where but you have to be patient. You have to get lucky, whatever. It's not like I'm staring at this now and like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to jump in to try to make 10% after the bottom buyers already made 30% or 40%.
Do it, Ledger. Do it.
That's honestly though, like, it's not a bad strategy, like, oftentimes, right? Like, for example, and I mean this, I'm going to talk about like a trade that I took this weekend, which is Bitcoin Cash. Like, I bought Bitcoin Cash, and it went up, it went down, and I was just like, well, I actually don't want to have this in my head all the time. Like, I don't want to look at this chart because I'm busy elsewhere. So I closed it, right? But basically, I bought this because I was like, this has so strong momentum. I think the moment we're going to get a bounce out of like anything, this is just going to go up like 10, 20, 30, 40%. And that's exactly what played out just without me on board. Like, I'm just coping. I think I even made like a tiny loss on this thing, even though it's up like 20%. So like, oftentimes when you get momentum, right? And when you think like, oh, it's up 40% already, I don't want to buy. Like, those are the candles that just give you another 40% afterwards. But it's a tough one because you have to have a little bit of a risk appetite. And I mean, for me, I didn't make money on this. So yeah.
I don't know. It's major mid-curve thinking, but when people are like, oh, don't do DeFi 1.0, DeFi is dead, there's no reason to hold this, all that stuff, when it's really one of the only products in crypto where you've got long-lasting product market fit and like working protocols that have been reliable and done well for quite some time. But like I said, major mid-curve thinking. And I would rather get the timing right on those and be able to participate in some of those moves versus buying Pepe or Doge or Ape or whatever meme coin of the month. And I personally believe that those will have outstanding moves at some point, and you'll look back and be like, holy crap, this was an obvious 10x or whatever. I don't think we're quite there yet to where we're looking for 10x moves. I think pulling a double in this type of market, you should feel very good about yourself.
Yeah, I do kind of agree. It's still, and I think this is gonna be the case until like Bitcoin trades like at 45, 50K, where you're gonna have troubles going well beyond like the 2x, just because, I mean, the dumb money one isn't there, right? Like, I don't think there's, like Craig said earlier, there's not that many tourists around.
I love how my name follows immediately after dumb money. You can probably crop that out. The dumb money, like Cred.
Just don't stop at the said.
But yeah, I think that's just basically one of the ingredients missing, into like just liquidity in general. So Bitcoin has to go up, and then you can see like the big moves. Until then, it's just gonna be like a little bit of a people lose money because something dumps, and then they sell it 10, 20, 30% below value, or like just because there's no liquidity, right? You have a bigger position that you need to close, it goes down, you just slip 20% or whatever. And then someone picks that up and trades it up another like 50 to 100%. But that doesn't mean like the bulls are back, right? Like when you see these kind of squeeze candles on a lot of this stuff, it's just basically it nuked a bunch. People sold it like way beyond where it should be. And then it just kind of bounces a little bit just because it went too low. And then a bunch of people jump on the short, right? Because they're like, oh, this shit should be lower. And then they get squeezed. And that's basically what we've been seeing in the altcoin world, right? More so than any actual interest, I would say. It's all just like people shorting and then getting squeezed, more so than, okay, this is a new narrative that's forming, or a new thing that is doing actually doing something, in my opinion anyway. I don't really see much flow in direction of like, okay, this is actually interesting, and more so, okay, what can we short squeeze, where are people that can be fucked over. That's been the narrative, and that's been the driving factor for a lot of these coins.
Adam,
Bitcoin was the only place with semi-interesting flows, at least for a little bit, right? Where you had coin spot premium in the US session. We haven't had that in fucking ages, so it'd be cool to see if that persists. But yeah, everything else is still very mercenary, especially on the altcoin front.
Adam in the chat said fresh charts greater than DeFi 1.0, and I think that's reasonable as a take. I just think the fresh charts don't just have to be freaking pay like ERC20s that people make up with a funny name. I think that if you're going to play that game, like, and this is something that's an open question for me, is what are the sectors of fresh charts going to be that come out, and I think we have an opportunity for this, come out at reasonable valuations, because forever fresh charts that came out were still unreasonable valuations. Like if you look at Optimism and Arbitrum and things like that, even though launched in the bear market with these like $10 billion valuations and whatnot. So are we going to see an opportunity in the next 6 months or a year for a fresh chart for a sector of real building and at not insane valuations? That would be a nice opportunity.
Presumably. I mean, every cycle has come close to that, or offered something of that nature. And also, what's reasonable changes massively, right? It's like what's reasonable in the bear market versus in the bull market versus, sort of the next midterm trend. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, it might be a reasonable valuation is like 500 million or $1 billion, but it's got opportunity to go to multiple billion, Yeah,
and then it'll die like everything else.
Yeah. All right. We said we're going to do a short show. We did a long show. Do we have anything else to say?
Good luck, Don.
Yeah. Good luck, Don.
I appreciate it.
Wishing you, and more importantly, your fiance, the best for the baby. Congratulations in advance. Hope everything goes smoothly. Thanks everybody for being here. Like and subscribe, whatever, all that stuff. If you feel like it, we'd appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time. See you later.